McQuestion for over 28 years, talking about things that matter with people who care. Production of McQuestion is made possible in part by individual viewers, supporters of the Foundation for Responsible Television, the Hatton W. Sumners Foundation, helping to educate the public about the fundamental principles of their democracy and thus be in a position to help formulate public policy. Moss Adams LLP, certified public accountants and consultants, providing industry-smart tax, assurance, and consulting solutions to help businesses and their owners succeed since 1913. The University of Texas at Dallas, creating the future.
We lament the fact that 45,000 Americans die from suicide every year. We also often find ourselves thinking about individuals we know personally who've been affected by this tragedy. On this program, you'll hear from 3 individuals who have and are dealing with suicide in unique ways, so let's meet them now. First on my left is Dan Johnson. He's a Southern Americana singer-songwriter whose newest project is Hemingway. It's a concert album, a book of short stories, and a nationwide tour to educate the public on the warning signs of suicide. His focus is on veterans, as his own father was a veteran who died by suicide when Dan was 10 years old.
Thank you for having me.
Sitting next to you is Julie Hirsch, and she's president of the Hirsch Foundation, an advocate for mental health awareness, and author of a book called Struck by Living, From Depression to Hope, where she reveals her story to dispel myths about depression. She promotes mental wellness using her top 10 brain projection list on her website. Julie, welcome to the program. And finally, next to you is Vanita Halliburton. She's co-founder and executive chairman of the Grant Halliburton Foundation. It's a nonprofit that works to raise awareness and understanding of youth mental health issues and suicide prevention. She speaks from the heart about her son's battle with depression and bipolar disorder, his suicide at age 19, and the need for a collaborative approach to suicide prevention. So, Vanita, tell us that story and then how that led into the Grant Halliburton Foundation.
Well, my son Grant was one of those just happy-go-lucky bolt of energy children. He was just, had lots of friends, very popular, very gifted in art and music, and those talents really blossomed when he was a teenager. But when he was in 8th grade, we learned that he was self-injuring. And to look at this child, you would never think he had a care in the world. He was diagnosed with chronic depression, and over the next 4.5 years, we really fought alongside of him, got him the help that he needed to manage his depression on and off successfully. When he was 19, I remember that he came to me one day and he said, "Mom, I'm going to need some serious help if I'm ever going to live a normal life." He had really begun to exhibit some really different, very difficult behavior that I didn't understand, and we knew enough to check him into a psychiatric hospital where he stayed for 30 days. He was immediately diagnosed with bipolar disorder 1 with psychoses, which explained a lot of the behavior we'd seen in the past year. I didn't know a lot about bipolar disorder. I tried to learn very quickly. I think at the end of 30 days, he told the doctors what they needed to hear, and they discharged him. But 2 weeks out of the hospital, he jumped from a 10-story building a block from our home.
Wow.
So we were left reeling with the shock and disbelief as parents who had gotten help for our child and done everything we knew to do. But I remember in the early days of grief just saying, what did we miss? We did everything we knew to do. What happened here? And I found kind of my answer and my direction, and we did everything we knew to do. And I knew that we didn't know everything we needed to know. We didn't know what the warning signs of suicidal behavior were. No one had ever shared those with us. And my next thought was, there must be other families who don't know what they need to know. And from there, the Grant Halliburton Foundation was born on a premise of, we need more education, we need to inform people, and we need to help connect them with resources. So that's what we do.
Yeah, that's a great thing. So thank you for that. And we had mentioned on a previous program that suicide itself is the 10th most used method of dying in America right now, but what is it for adolescents?
Suicide is the second leading cause of death for children aged 10 to 24. And it's trending downward, we know this, and it's increasing. You know, I always say if we were talking about a mosquito-borne virus that was taking the lives of our children and making it the second leading cause of death, it would be on every program. It would be on the news every night, how to recognize those signs and everything. So it's the stigma, I think, and lack of understanding that keep people from treating this with the seriousness that it is a major public mental health issue.
Exactly. Now, Julie, you wrote your book, I think in 2010, and you wrote it about, you know, sort of your first major bout with depression. So tell us what went on and how you dealt with it and how you've gotten through it and all that.
Well, Dennis, I was actually thinking about that this morning, 17 years ago, in September, I was sitting in a locked psychiatric ward waiting for my first round of electroconvulsive therapy. And I was so certain that I had no hope and no possibility, that I had nothing to offer my family or my children who are 5 and 7, that I drove my car into the garage and let it run for 90 minutes. Now, luckily my garage happens to be very well ventilated, that I did not know that. And I survived, and very luckily for me, electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, did work. And I was able to pretty immediately transform out of that depression. And to me, that really was wonderful because I knew that I felt better, but I thought, okay, wait a minute, all of a sudden I feel 180 degrees differently, but I have the same husband, the same kids. How could have I possibly gotten that depressed? And how do I avoid getting there again? Because I don't want to repeat the cycle. And so for me, that's how my book got started. And I spent about eight years, scary enough, thinking about writing a book in 8 years. I did that. But what's really exciting since the publication of the book in 2010 is I've talked to thousands of people about my story, but we've also got the momentum to start the Center for Depression Research and Clinical Care at UT Southwestern. I really felt like when I first went to my primary care doc complaining about massive weight loss, about insomnia, about all these things, if he had the knowledge and wherewithal to say, not only, yes, you're depressed, but let me look at this tool and tell you this is the type of medication you should be on, I would have avoided the whole trajectory of my illness. And so that's why our family foundation funded the Center for Depression Research, because today doctors really are handicapped in that they can't tell you exactly what type of medication. There's lots of medications out there that might work, but it's a lot of guesswork to get to the point of being